What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. I am so super stoked to have you here. If this is not your first time here, welcome back. But if the algorithm has done its job, then this is most likely your first experience with this channel. Now, the reason I'm making this video today for first timers, people who don't know really anything about video creation and editing, is because according to a study, the fastest growing small business model in the world today is content creation. That means that right now, more than anything else of skills people need to learn, there are people who need to learn to edit videos and photos, really, but this is more along videos than really any other skill. And there's some that are going to school. There are some really good schools for it. There are some really good videos for it. But when I did my research, I still have not found a lot of people that are covering mostly the basics of editing. Like, they'll get into the really deep down stuff that you're going to need to know, but they're usually a few steps ahead. So this is going to be a little bit of a longer video, probably a little bit slow, but hopefully by the end of it, you will know enough to edit your first video. Now, I'm not going to teach you all of the ins and outs. I'm not going to teach you, a lot of creating transitions and titles and things like that. That's going to be other videos. This one, I really just want to focus in and get you the basics. Okay, so we're going to use an app in a few minutes. It's available on iOS. It's available on Mac computers made 2020 or later, iPads, iPhones, things like that. And it's called Lumafusion. Lumafusion, bang for your buck. I've got videos left and right proving it. Excuse me. Bang for your buck. It is the best editing software out there. Is it the best editing software? Nah, not even close. Like, there are programs that can do things you would not even comprehend at this point in it. But if you're at this point where this is your first time editing, you don't need those. You don't need to be at that level yet. So why would I sit here and teach you something that you don't need to invest that kind of money in? Lumafusion costs about $30, and it'll do a lot of the stuff that those others do, but you're just gonna have to do it a little bit more manually, which I think is better. Excuse me, because if you can learn the ins and outs of editing, if you can learn how to keyframe things, if you can learn how to create your own, then you can upgrade to a program that'll do it for you, and you'll be able to fix those things that aren't working quite right. So before we get started on it, guys, let's go over some terminology that you're gonna hear out there, especially if you are on YouTube looking for information on how to edit. That means you're probably going to other places to find the same information, and these are things you're going to hear that you may not fully comprehend. So most of the terms we're going to cover right now are going to be aspect ratio, frame rate, resolution, color space, and metadata. Now, those are going to be your basic terms that you need to know in order to really ask the right questions when you are looking for help further on down, when you're trying to get some of those things done that you're gonna want to get accomplished to get a good video out there. Okay, so let's start with aspect ratio. There are a ton of aspect ratios, but the two you really want to worry about are going to be 16:9 and 9:16. Do those sound like the same thing reversed? Well, that's because they are. 16:9 is your basic horizontal. So these are based off of, the 16:9 is based off of a television. It is based off of the flat screen TV, how it's wider than it is tall, and it's also based off of your phone. Your phone, when in horizontal, when like this, is 16:9. When like this, in portrait mode, it's 9:16. That's all you have to remember to understand what your frame rate is, or what your aspect ratio is. If it's 9 by 16, if it's taller than it is wide, then you are in portrait mode. If it's wider than it is tall, you are in vertical mode or horizontal mode. Sorry. Now, or landscape is also what it's called. Landscape, horizontal, vertical is portrait. Now, you will hear people say, and you're gonna hear me repeat this over and over. You're going to hear people say you should only record in you should only record in 16 by 9. You should only record in horizontal mode. You don't record vertical. Vertical videos are stupid. Well, we've kind of proven that wrong in the past 2 years with the way TikTok has blown up to a point that now even YouTube is trying to push people towards making vertical videos that they call shorts in order to jump onto that bandwagon. So it is a growing medium and you're going to be using it. You may not use it right now. You may use landscape more than portrait. But I want you to remember this one phrase. Your workflow is your workflow and my workflow is my workflow. What that means is what works for you works for you. What works for me works for me. That just because sometimes those match up doesn't mean it always has to be that way. In this industry, there are a lot of people who are adamant that this is the way it's done and this is the way it has to be done. And I hate those people. I argue with those people all the time because that's just not the way it is. 20 years ago, when they first came out with digital filming, people were saying the same thing. You have to film on film. You can't film digitally. Everything will suck if it's digital. And now it's the only medium there really is. People are getting back to film, but it's not really used anymore. You don't even show it in a movie theater on film anymore. It's all digital. So don't let people bully you into going with theirs. Stick with what works for you. So if vertical works for you, do vertical. If you're doing TikTok or Instagram or Facebook videos, you're going to be filming completely in vertical. If you're doing YouTube videos, you're probably going to be doing horizontal more than anything because that's just what people are used to. But like I said, with the shorts, they're promoting vertical videos anyway. So be prepared to film in that way for YouTube also. I have to excuse me drinking the tea and my voice is in and out today. Now, the things you also need to remember if you're filming with your phone and you're filming vertical, if you're filming and you're looking at the screen, then everything you see is going to be reversed. So you're going to just have to flip that. You don't have to. I mean, if it's TikTok, again, nobody does, so you're fine. It's really just keying into your target audience and what they want to see. That is the most important thing, which brings me to the next topic, which is frame rate. Now, just like there are multiple aspect ratios, there are multiple frame rates. And these are going to be put out with a number followed by FPS or FP or FS, just something along those lines. And what the FPS stands for is frames per second. Now, this may seem like things that are dumbed down and something that everyone should know, but you're not actually making a moving picture. That doesn't exist. What you're actually doing in your camera or in your phone when you're recording is you're taking a series of pictures and the computer in your camera or your phone is combining those in order to give the illusion of movement. It's all that's ever been done. It's the only way to do it. You don't actually create anything that moves. And the way it does that is in each second, there are at least 24 frames or 24 still images for every second of footage. The reason it's 24, it's a complicated reason, but it really boils down to two. And of those two, it's really only one. So the biggest one being, and this is going to be across the board, industry-wide, the first reason that we do anything the way we do it, and that's just because that's how it's always been done. When they started making movies and moving pictures, as they called them, the gear they had was only able to go as fast as 24 frames per second. And also they realized like that is pretty much the lowest speed you can go that your eye will understand this to be a moving picture. Anything less, and it's going to be very jumpy, and it's just going to look like a series of pictures strewn together to mimic motion. It'll kind of be like in grade school when you would draw pictures on post-it notes and then flip through it. Anything less than 24 frames per second is going to look like that. Now, with the advent of digital and other things happening, we've been able to extend the number of frame rates you can film in extremely. I think the iPhone right now, with the proper applications added to it that'll open up your camera, something like Filmic Pro, you're able to get up as high as 240 frames per second. I don't know about Samsung phones. I believe they're also limited to 240, but I could be wrong. Now, the reason you would want to go with those higher frame rates is if you want to slow the footage down and have it still look smooth, but that is a topic for a completely different video. I actually did a video on slow motion, so if you want to go check that out, it is on my channel. While I'm thinking about it, guys, if you're getting any information from this video, go ahead and hit that like button for me so I know, so the algorithm knows it can put it out there and other people might get some information from it. But back to frame rates. If you want to slow it down, you want to, depending on how slow you want it to go, you want to go higher frame rates. Otherwise, you want to try to stick around 24 or 30, 24 being what most like cinema features that you're going to go to the movies and watch. That's going to be at 24 frames per second. Anything you watch on television is usually at around 30 frames per second, which is, like I said, as they started getting more into digital and new mediums, when they created television, they were able to, with the tapes they were recording on for television or going live, they were able to actually get it up to 30 frames per second. So that's what you're used to seeing on TV, and that's what a lot of your YouTube videos are now. You can go as high as 60 frames per second. I believe that's what TikTok does. And that's going to be your more smooth looking. You're not going to have as much of what's known as motion blur, which is that blurred line that is left behind tracers as you move. Excuse me. Just a heads up on that. People are going to see it at 60 frames per second. They're going to see smooth motion that they don't see with their normal eyes watching somebody walk. Or they do sometimes, actually. But they're going to know that it's fake. So if you want to kind of suspend belief, then you're going to want to stick at 30 frames or 24. If you are in other countries with different voltage on your lights, those numbers are going to change to 25 and 50. I'm not sure what those countries are. They're somewhere in Europe, I believe. And that's literally just because of the voltage. At 24, you see the lights flicker, which you can do if you get bad lighting. Even at 24 or 30 frames. I'm re-recording this video because I recorded it a couple of days ago and I had these LEDs on for ambient light, and it turns out that they were not at the right speed and you can see them flickering in the background. So you live, you learn. So we've covered aspect ratio, we've covered frame rate. Now let's talk about resolution. Resolution honestly just boils down to how much information your camera or your phone is storing for each video you film. These are produced in numbers. Anything HD is going to be 1080p, which is basically the number is going to be the width. So at 1080p, your 16 frame is going to have 1080 pixels. Pixels are just little dots of color and light. That's it. It's little tiny, almost microscopic dots of light. Have you ever watched a TV show or a movie and you have just like a little square, or on your computer this little square that's like blank or looks different? That's a pixel. So the more pixels you have on screen, the smaller the pixel is. Think old 80s video games like Mario Brothers as compared to like Skyrim. Mario Brothers is 8-bit, so it's literally just pixels, like huge squares that are all put together to shape out this block-looking person, as opposed to Skyrim, which is more 3D looking and more realistic because it's more pixels being used. You're going to have you're gonna basically want to stick with either 1080p or 4K. So either 1080 pixels across or 4000 pixels across. The only reason I can, now you're gonna hear people say over and over and over and over again, like I said, you're gonna hear me repeat this. You're gonna hear people say you should only shoot in 4K, only do 4K. I only use 4K. Awesome, that works great for you, but not everybody can shoot in 4K, and the human eye cannot tell the difference between 1080 and 4K. So why would you want to shoot in 4K then? If the human eye can't tell the difference, why do you want to film that way almost every time? If you have the ability to do it, you want to film in 4K because you want to get as much data as possible. So when you're doing something called color grading, you're able to really play with those colors more. Also, you know, I'm doing a really close-up image. I'm using a 25 millimeter camera. So with I'm using a 25 millimeter lens on a mirrorless camera that zooms in a little bit. But if not, I would be a little bit further back. And if I wanted to get this same look, I would have to stretch it. If you do 4K, you have more pixels to work with, so you can stretch it out and not really see the space in between those pixels. So, but here's the downside to 4K. Though almost every phone out there will film in 4K up to 60 frames per second, not every camera will. If you're filming on a camera, if you're filming on a starter camera like a Canon EOS T7, I think, I don't even remember what it's called, EOS Rebel 7 something, that is not going to be able to film in 4K. That's going to be able to go just as high as 1080, and that's it. And that's okay. That's not bad. Like I said, the human eye can't see the difference. So don't go and spend a ton of money buying a camera. Well, don't go and spend a ton of money buying a camera anyway. But if you are, don't spend even more money to get a camera that's going to be able to shoot 4K 60 frames per second if that's not what you're going to be using it for. And at the level you're at now, you're not going to be using it for that. Like, you probably don't even fully grasp what color grading is. You're probably still filming on a phone, and that's actually perfect. I film a lot of my videos on my phone. I do a lot of my photography on my phone because it's a really good camera. So stick with what you've got. That's what I'm going to say on that. And again, don't listen to people who tell you, well, I only film in 4K. Well, great for you. You're probably filming with a GoPro or your phone. You probably didn't go out and spend $5,000 on a camera that shoots in 4K. If you did, then great, you have the money to spend, but not everybody does. So use what you need is basically what I'm trying to get at with all of this. Okay, so we've covered aspect ratio, we've covered resolution, we've covered frame rate. What else did I say I was going to cover? So I got aspect ratio, frame rate, resolution, color space. This is one you're probably not going to need to worry about too much unless you have a newer iPhone, like an iPhone 12 Pro Max or the new iPhone 13s, which are capable of filming in what is known as HDR or 10-bit color. And basically what that means in a nutshell, and there's so much to it that I really can't break down everything in it, but I can sum it up to basically that so all color is really just light, right? And it's just a measurement of how much light is really being shown through your colors. Well, how much light is on your screen. An SDR, or a typical what you're used to seeing, what every iPhone up to this point, every camera up to this point, almost every camera on the market that is less than $7,000 to $10,000 to $100,000 a piece will only be filming in 8-bit SDR. 8-bit is SDR, 10-bit is HDR, by the way. So what every camera on the market right now is doing, what SDR is what the measurement known that used for light is called a nit. SDR uses 100 nits, right? So it's 0 to 100, and if you ever get a chance to look at a vector scope, or not a vector scope, a waveform or a cinema or a scope to do color grading, you'll see that it goes from 0 to 100 because that's what we're used to, that's what we know, and that's what almost every camera films in is 100 nits. So HDR 10-bit will film in 10,000 nits. So it's a massive, massive jump. Now, I really don't think you need to know about 10-bit unless you're filming on an iPhone. If you are, and you're filming in 10-bit, let me give you this piece of advice on editing. And that is that if you are filming a video that you recorded in 10-bit footage, and then you take a photo that you've shot that's only 8-bit, and you throw that 8-bit photo, which, as far as I know, I can't think of a single camera that will actually take a picture in HDR, in 10-bit color. When you put that photo on that same timeline, which we'll get into what a timeline is in a second, then you're actually going to see that massive difference in light, and that your picture is now going to be so bright, so overexposed that you can't even see anything. So just be careful of that. If you throw a picture on your timeline and it blows out like that, that's where your issue is, and I'll show you how to fix that in just a second. Let's go ahead. Oh, the last thing I need to talk about. So what is metadata? People are going to ask you, what's the metadata on that? What are the specs? What's the metadata on that file you're using? If you ask, oh, I have this problem with this clip I'm trying to edit, and it's not working, and this is happening or that is happening. Oh, well, what's the metadata? What's the metadata? That's everything I just told you. That is your frame rate, your aspect ratio, your resolution, and your color space. That's all that information is, just your metadata. And that is all saved onto the video clip that you record. Your camera or your phone will save a copy of that information for you to be able to look at, so you know what it is. I'm going to show you where to do that. Let's go ahead and jump into Lumafusion now, actually, and I'll go ahead and show you all this stuff I'm talking about. Okay, so the first time you open Lumafusion, it's basically going to look just like this. You're going to have this down here where it says to press plus to create your first project. This is going to be all of your, what's known as your project panel. Once you actually start editing and creating projects, they're going to appear here. Right now it's blank. I'll show you what it'll look like in just a second. Above that, you're going to have your viewer window or your inspector window. It's called a few different things by a few different people, and depending on the software you use, it's got a different name. But please keep in mind, what I'm teaching you now is in Lumafusion, but this is so basic level that everything I'm about to show you, you can accomplish in any editing software. So just know that. That's how basic this is going to be. You're going to be able to accomplish this in anything, really. It's just the basics of what editing is. So your viewer window is really going to show you any information you need to know. At this point on your project panel, or your project screen, this is just, if you have a project here, it's going to show you what is on that project. Over here, this is your source window. This is where all of your clips, all of your information that you're going to need for your video, they all exist somewhere in your source window. So let's go ahead and I want to show you guys with Lumafusion. Down here in the lower right hand corner, you see this gear with a question mark on it. Well, this is your settings, but if you hold it, if I can actually get it to work, there you go. If you hold your finger on it, or if you're on a Mac, click your mouse on it, hold it, you see what it shows you? It's showing you what every button on that screen does. So keep that in mind, keep that in the back of your mind. If you can't remember what a button does, then just hold down on the settings. If you walk away from nothing else from this video, remember that, please, because that is gonna save you so much time and energy and so many headaches of asking people and getting yelled at in whatever group you're in because it's such a basic question that apparently they're too busy to answer. All right, let's do what it says. Let's hit this plus button down here in the lower left. And this gives us our project panel information. Let's just call it first video. And you see it has your frame rate, your aspect ratio, and your color space here. And when you click this, you see all of these different frame rates that you can use. 240 is really pretty much the highest you're going to get. I think there are cameras out there like things like an Arri Alexa or anything that is industry grade, like film companies use this camera grade, will go higher than 240, but I can't think of any consumer camera that will right now. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this at 30 frames or 29.97. It's technically 29.97 per second or 23.98 per second. Ooh. So, but you can, if you do 30 or 24, you're still fine. Aspect ratio, we're going to keep this at landscape because none of the footage we're going to be using is going to be portrait mode. And our color space, like I said, you have your 10-bit and your 8-bit. 10-bit, I mean, here it's a little different, but on most of them, it's just 10-bit is Rec 709. Or sorry, 8-bit is Rec 709 and 10-bit is Rec 2020, I think, or 2010. But here it has it broken down a little differently. If you are filming with an iPhone 12 Pro Max and you are filming in Dolby Vision, that's going to be your HDR HLG. But we're going to stick to Rec 709. And we hit our plus again, and we've just opened our first project. Congratulations, you now know what a timeline looks like. Your timeline is this right here. Your timeline is twofold. Your timeline is where your movie is built, and it's also your movie. So your movie is, you know, a sequence from beginning to end, just like a timeline. So that's really where the name comes from. On your timeline, you have these little spaces here, which are called tracks. As you build, as you put clips down, you get more and more tracks. You can go up to 6 tracks of video and 6 tracks of audio inside of Lumafusion. And I'll show you what those look like in just a second. And then over here you have your audio and visual controls. We're not going to really get into those. We're just going to stick to this basic stuff. So I want to show you a really cool feature of Lumafusion and another reason why I say dollar for dollar, it's the best bang for your buck. Come up here in this upper left-hand corner and tap or click that, and you see it gives you a list of sources you can use. Right here in the middle, this is something called Storyblocks. So what Storyblocks is a company, it's a website that they have a lot of audio and video footage. I think they even have like stills that for a nominal fee, you're able to access that and use it on your YouTube videos, on your Instagram, on your Facebook, on your TikTok, and pay no royalties for it because that fee you're paying every month is covering the royalties because Storyblocks owns the right to use that. Inside of Lumafusion, it comes already integrated with Storyblocks. A little bit better than that, not only is it integrated into Lumafusion, but if you look here, a lot of it's free. Now there's more audio that's free, more music is free than videos, but that's just because you're going to use more music than you are going to use videos. So you get a ton of free music and a decent amount of free footage. So definitely while you're learning, while you're practicing, practice on this Storyblocks footage and see if you like it. See if go through and look at the ones that actually cost money. See if it's something you would use. I personally use it sometimes. The fee for it is so cheap. Like at the time I'm filming this, it's $10 a month or $70 a year. And it's already set up. You don't have to give them your YouTube or your Instagram or anything. If you are, well, you don't have to give them your YouTube. I don't think it's integrated with Instagram or Facebook yet, but it is integrated into YouTube so that if you export directly from Lumafusion onto YouTube, they're going to take care of all of that and you're not going to get a ding for using copyrighted materials. Okay, so let's look at how a video works and the things you do. Well, this has actually changed in the past couple of days. So let's start with, what is a good video we're going to use? I want to get, let's just go with this beach view. Yeah, so you get that, as you see in your viewer, when you pull everything up, you can see what the footage is here. And remember I told you I'm going to show you how to find that metadata. Well, that is right here, this little circle with an eye. Click on that, and you see it says it's 4K. It's the name of it. It's how long it is. It is a 4K video, like I said, 16:9 Rec 709. So there's all your information. It doesn't tell you whether it's SDR or HDR, and that's a pretty good indicator that it is SDR. So we're going to drop that down on our timeline. And we're going to give Lumafusion a couple of seconds to download the actual clip from Storyblocks. Once you do this the first time though, you don't have to worry about doing it a second time, because it's going to store that on there as a cache file. So if you decide I don't want this on this video right now and delete it and then go back and put it back on, it's still going to be saved in your temporary file on your computer or on your tablet. And you can clean those out using this down here, the settings button down here, but we're not going to get into that right now. There we go. Our footage is now on our timeline. As you see, it is now taken over that first track. And I'm going to show you how to add onto the second track here. So we're going to start with this video of, looks like a mother and child. We like this video. We want to put it on our track. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out where we want it. And this blue line right here, this is what's called your playhead. Now what a playhead basically is it is the camera for this viewer. It is your camera. So anything that is in front of this playhead is what your camera is going to see. It's what your video is going to show. So this blue line, if you think about it right here where these numbers are, just think about it this way. That is your camera's lens, and it's looking down along this blue line. So anything that is in front, so this would be the very back. So anything I put on top, I throw this down here. Well, now that is on top of or in front of that beach image. And give it just a second to let this go ahead again and download from Storyblocks. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. But basically, now you cannot see that beach, because once you get to where this other image is, now that is what's being shown on or through your playhead, through your camera to your audience. So you have to keep that in mind. If you stack it on top, you have now created a new scene on top. And you don't necessarily need what's underneath unless you're going to be showing what's underneath through it. Now, if I were to put a title down here, a title, I'll show you that. Go over here, hit this circle with a plus, and just click on overlay title. And as you see, it drops the title on here, and you can go in and edit those. And I'm going to show you how to edit things right now. If you click on your track, or on your clip, which is what these little boxes of footage are called, go ahead and click on that, and then click your pencil. This is going to open your editor. Now you're going to start your editor at color and effects. This is where you can create, you can brighten or dim, create more contrast, create a black and white image, pull some of those highlights out to kind of darken it without darkening it. You can make it cooler or warmer. There's just all kinds of fun things you can do. I've done a couple of videos on color correcting and color grading. Definitely check those out if you want to go into detail on it. You can also drop down what's known as a LUT, or a lookup table, which is just, it is an algorithmic program, basically. I mean, there's not really much of a way to say it. It's an algorithm to tell your editing software what kind of color you want. It's kind of like a filter on Instagram. That's kind of what a LUT is. So like here, we're going to put a sepia on here, and look, that completely changed the color of our video. We can also come in here, we can resize it, move it around. There's a lot of different things we can do. We can spin it, whatever it is you can think of, you can probably do it in here. But here's what I wanted to show you, because I wanted to say, like I said, the only way you're going to be able to see what's underneath, or you're going to need what's underneath, is if you make it where you can see what is underneath. And to do that, you have to adjust what is known as the opacity. Now in Lumafusion, that is under a heading called blending in your frame and fit mode. Under others, opacity is its own thing that sits in your controls panels. So just keep that in mind. But if we bring that opacity down, now you see it's thinning out the color on that top video so that you can see what is underneath a little better. So now if we play this, kind of gives you that kind of dream look to it. So the same thing can be done if you put text on here. if you go ahead and let me make sure that doesn't happen again. Do not disturb for 1 hour. Thank you. If you go ahead and click on this guy and go into your edit, now you're in your text editing screen. You still have your color and effects. You still have your frame and fit, but you also now have your text editor, which gives you the ability. So right here where it says your text here, click on that, and then this box right here will pop up, the paper and pencil. Guess what that does? Yeah, that changes your writing. So then you can come in here and you can type whatever you want to. And then go ahead and hit done. And then now you can come down, you can change the font. You can change the colors. You can add an edge to it. You can add a shadow. You can make that shadow go out further, blur it out. Like, you can do all kinds of really cool things with the text. So I definitely suggest you get in and play with it. In fact, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go ahead and create a quick little video using the free Storyblocks footage. Export it out and post it to your Instagram or to your YouTube, whichever one you want to use, and tag me in it. I want to see what it is that you guys are doing, and I want to see you play with some text. I want to see you play with some opacity, or put picture in picture, which if you want to do that, show you really fast. And then I think we're going to walk away, because I think that is a whole lot of information to give you guys in one, like, what are we at? We're at 30-40 minute video. So here you are, you're back in your frame and fit. I brought the blending all the way back up. So if we want to do picture in picture, all you have to do is come to your size and position, move your size way down, and then just move it somewhere. And then when you come back out, which I haven't shown you guys, I keep doing it and not showing you, right up here, this little arrow in the upper left-hand corner, that's how you come back out. Go ahead and click on that. And as you see, now your people holding hands. Oh, wait, what happened? So you see what's happening here? That clip is longer than the one underneath. So how do we fix that? What's actually the easiest fix there is? You hit this button, one of these buttons here, to go to the end of the clip. And then right here, your scissors, go ahead and hit that. And if you have the clip you're cutting highlighted, it's going to leave the second half highlighted. And the reason being is that Lumafusion is assuming you're cutting that because you want to delete it. So hit your trash can and it deletes. And there you go. One interesting little beach video footage. Took you 5 minutes to make. That's how easy editing is. And that's where I'm going to leave you guys at for here. Like I said, I just wanted to teach you the bare bones basics. Hopefully you got some information out of this. If you did, let me know in the comments. Also, if you got some good information out of this, guys, hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you can know when I release another video. I have been really slow to release for the past few weeks, but that's just because I started a new job. My schedule's getting back under control now, so I'm going to start uploading at least once a week again very soon. So definitely subscribe so you know when that's coming out. Hit me up on Instagram, like I said, and tag me in a video if you make one. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you. So until the next video, guys, I want you to stay safe, stay healthy, keep editing, and God bless. I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.